This is That One Audition with Alyshia Ochse.
I've been watching your career for the last 20 years. You've been in some of my absolute favorite smaller films, like films that even people out. I like Junebug.
I loved Junebug. Oh, I did love that film.
Junebug, one of my absolute favorites. So I'm so excited to just hear your building blocks of getting to this place. And I had no idea. So you're American born, but were raised in South Africa from 9 on. Is the internet false?
Yeah, no, the internet gets certain things wrong, but they're pretty right about that from sort of 8 on. So my parents were South African born, and then they moved to America because my dad was studying. He was doing his PhD. So I was conceived in the States and born in the States. They were students here. And then we lived in the States till I was 8 and then moved back to South Africa. And, the timing of that was not great. It was moving to South Africa at the worst of the apartheid era, which is a lot of why I ended up making this film, because I feel like there were certain things burnt into my memory that I felt storytelling-wise I really wanted to tell that story. I'm American.
American, but raised, your primitive year, like your more formidable years, and when you decided to start acting. So I've only ever talked to one other beautiful, amazing South African woman who kind of started her career there. I don't know if you're familiar with Leslie Brandt, but she came and did the show. She's from there. Yes. But did you know that this is something that you wanted to do? How did acting start over in South Africa?
I didn't set out to America and I'm going to be in the film business. That wasn't my intention. I was at university. We did these sort of aptitude tests where they told you what you were good at. And they said, oh, you'd be a good lawyer. And I thought, gosh, that's so dry. I knew I wanted to study English. So I went to university. And when I got there, you had to audition to join the drama department. I thought, oh, I do that as a subject. So I'll do English and then I'll see what my 2 majors are going to be, because we used to have to do 2 majors. And I landed in the drama department. And I think it was something about the combination of the literature, but actually it was the performance bug that really bit, probably in my 2nd year of college, where I went, wow, I love this. Any actor's going to say, that's that feeling, that thing that made me feel alive. So then I just tumbled along, luckily. A lot of this is luck. We make our own luck, but we get a lot of luck that comes to us along the way. And I just happened in South Africa, there was a part that they needed someone who was young to play. So then I got that, and that won a bunch of awards. And then just when I left college, I landed the part of Juliet in Romeo and Juliet. That's what I mean by luck, right? So I worked really hard. But then the luck came too. Then I got to a point after a few years there where I thought, I'm American. I have an American passport. South Africa is in political turmoil, a lot of things I didn't feel aligned with. And I thought, why don't I go back to America and give it a shot there? So I got here and I waitressed. I was a terrible waitress. I was very homesick. But again, I got really lucky. And I got a part, probably 4 months in, I got Sam Raimi's Army of Darkness, which is like a crazy, people know the Evil Dead films. It has a cult following. And I didn't know what I was doing. I took myself very seriously, which I think is why the comedy of it worked, because I thought I was being very proper and I'm a maiden in distress. And so then it's actually very funny when the Bruce Campbell character says and does the crazy stuff that he does. And that was one thing. And then I did 2 TV movies of the week. I had very good agents. I think that's a luck thing too. I got an agent.
Yeah, how did you get the good agents from South Africa?
Yeah, and someone had been in South Africa. This is the thing, you never know who's watching you. Someone had been in South Africa, and the English William Morris, head of William Morris at the time, and he saw me in a stage play and said to my agent in South Africa, if she should ever come abroad, let me know. So then I said, let me go via London on my way to my American adventure. I met him, and then he called the LA, what was then the William Morris company, and said, she's on her way, you should meet her. And I got William Morris with my first agent. So how does that happen? That's what I mean. There's the divine. But again, I was really working, and every night I wanted my performance to be great. So whatever random night that guy came in and his eyes were on me, I didn't even know they were. And then he said, she should get in touch with us. So those sorts of things are good. It's why you always bring your A game, no matter where you are, because you never know who's watching you.
Okay, then I have to blow smoke up on the internet too as well. Did Steven Spielberg he saw one of your South
Yes.
African films and he just offered you Schindler's List?
It wasn't a South African film. I then, after the Sam Raimi, I did 2 movies of the week. It was before your time, but back in the day.
Oh, no, I'm older than you think.
Okay, we used to do these movies of the week, and the great thing is I actually was offered a play that I'd auditioned for in San Francisco, which I really wanted to do. I was like, great, I'm going to go back and do theater. But then I had auditioned for this movie of the week that paid at that time, my gosh, it was money I was driving such a broken down, beaten up old car that it was like, oh my God, I could live on this for a year. So I ended up saying, I'm going to take it. It was a very good part. Steven Spielberg saw that. So that aired during Sweeps Week. And he called my agents, the William Morris Company at the time, and said, I want to meet with her. That is how Schindler's List happened. And that one audition I went in so prepared, terrified, but so prepared. I learned my lines. I got my accent down. I was off book. I went in and he basically said, after the reading, he directed, try this, try that. And then he said, you've got the part, which was that life-changing moment, right? But again, it's the work you're doing that someone sees that you never think that person's going to see it that can change things.
That can absolutely, yeah. I know when people always say it's the work that begets work. Don't be so precious about getting the agent or manager. Don't be so be precious about the work. But I think for a lot of younger actors or even actors today that are starting even a little bit later, it's harder to even grab the work at this time. Like it's just a difference.
Yes. So then in that case, and it's changed so much, I don't know much about the landscape of what it is to be a young starting out actor now. It seems very different, the self-taping and that kind of thing. But I would say that then when the opportunities present themselves and you've got a day that you can spare to be in a student film, to be in some kind of avant-garde production, to throw your hat in the ring, any experience is good experience. And even if there isn't a payday, if it happens to be a day that you're not doing the job that pays your rent, take the job. Go be on that set. You'll learn something by doing it.
I mean, it seems to me, for somebody that like gets to look at your resume, that there was never a lull moment. Once you got here, signed with William Morris, you do Schindler's List. It opens everything to you. And you do Matilda, Fallen. Fallen was one of my absolute favorite films. I watched that so many times.
If you study my resume, you will see a little bit. I think I got too precious with myself and thought, no, I don't even want to dare tell you the things that I turned down. When Schindler's List happened, I thought, oh, this is just going to go on forever. I'm going to get offered everything. But it doesn't. So that's the other word of advice is when the moment comes along, when you're having a lucky moment, do not think that luck, that's just what life is going to be like. You have to think, God, I'm having luck right now. Grab it, both hands. Say more yeses than nos is what I would say to the universe. Yes, say yes, yes, yes. Bring it my way. Take it. Take whatever you can. Grab it with both hands because it doesn't. And then I stopped working for a long time when I was raising my kids, mostly because I would take the odd thing that shot in LA, and I had a great deal of fun shooting things like In Treatment and Californication and Ray Donovan because they shot in LA. But at that point, lots of stuff had left LA. And when I had the kids and they were little, I didn't want to be gone for 6 months of the year and not be with them or have them raised by a nanny. And that's where the film that I wrote and directed came about, because there were these years where I really felt like I had nothing much to show for it. And like any actor or artist that loves to do something and derives meaning from making things, when you're not making things, you feel not happy and not happy with yourself. And that's how that came about. So in the lulls, you can also find the other way of creating, whatever it is, if it's writing short story, if it's painting, if it's singing, if it's playing an instrument, if it's picking up your iPhone and making a short film. There are things that we can do to keep that side of ourselves alive.
This is where I'm so excited to get to in your process, because I do think today, doesn't matter if you've been working for 20 years, doesn't matter if you've been on 5 or 6 shows, because there's a constriction in the business. you really, actor for hire, my agent and I talked about this yesterday. He's like, it's a dying business. And I was like, okay, so what's our strategy? And he was like, I've been producing and doing a lot of optioning a lot of IP, but a lot of actors don't know how to do this. So Embeth, will you like get specific and walk us through from start to finish, from you reading this book, because I know you read it probably a decade plus ago.
Yeah.
Is it something that was sent to you? And what are the
No.
building blocks to you making it?
So this is the thing, and I certainly did not set out thinking that the end result would be that Sony Picture Classics would buy this film and that this film would be released. That's the luck. But the starting point of it was the children were home. I've always read. I read a lot. I think if you can read, you should read. If you can't read, if you have, any kind of dyslexia, listen to Audible, listen to books on tape, but stories, listen to story, because story teaches you. Just like the many years where I got sent a lot of scripts, I think it taught me something about what works in scripts and what doesn't. Just even unconsciously, I wasn't aware that I was learning something. But I'd get to the end of a script and go, that's not great. But I remember when I read Junebug and went, that's a fantastic script. Angus McLaughlin's script, fantastic script. So you learning, even just by listening, what are the ebbs and flows? What are the rhythms of a story? How does a story end when it ends well? Anyway, I loved to read. English was my other major, English literature. And I'd picked up a book or heard about this book that was a memoir written by a woman who'd grown up in Africa, similar to me. And it knocked my socks off. And that is truly the beginning and end and the be-all, end-all of this experience was that book. It was, her writing was so brilliant. The characters were so brilliant. It made the job that I had to do that much easier because she wrote something so vivid and beautiful. It was a very popular book. Don't Let's Go to the Dogs Tonight, Alexandra Fuller. The world, all over the world, people fell in love with this because she had such a unique way, a very funny, tragic, but wonderful voice, the way she told a story. So the actor in me could see and hear things. Anyway, I went back to it again some years when Nicole Kidman and Reese were doing Big Little Lies. I thought, those girls are looking for material and they're getting things made. It was a new thing. And I thought, gosh, what's out there? And I thought, oh, I remember that book. There was a wonderful part of the mother. I've taken off all this time to raise my kids. Maybe I should look at that. Are the rights available? Yes, the rights are available. And this is also where people mustn't think I can't afford rights. Yes, possibly the New York Times bestseller, you can't afford the rights to that. But there might be a tiny little story, a short story that was published somewhere that nobody ever paid anything for, something that you could afford. Some writer that you say, give me a chance on it. Let me have a crack at it. Give me a first option on it. And so I got the rights to the book. I met the author. Very luckily, she said yes. I couldn't find a screenwriter. I couldn't find the right person that really, because it was a 20-year memoir. It spanned 20 years. And I thought, that's not going to make a film. You'd have to have the young and then the middle and then the old person. It's going to be too expensive. So I fiddled around with it for years, actually. I carried on raising the kids and then I would go back to it. It was like my little quiet place that I would go back to and I'd write and I'd write. So it doesn't also have to be an overnight thing. This took a long time. And then finally,
may I interrupt 1 second and ask, how long did you have your first option for and how many times did you have to extend? Because for tangible, for creatives, I've had an IP for 10 years and I think people don't understand the process of really, even like you said, it was a New York Times bestseller. You getting that meeting with her, I'm sure her choosing you was because of your backgrounds. But yeah, how long did you have the option for?
I think I renewed 3 times. So I had it for 9 years. I think we did 3-year options or something like that. I can't remember. But I had to keep renewing it because the script wasn't ready. And then finally the script was ready. Then I didn't have a director. And so then I finally cracked the code of the script. And I thought, this is the way to tell this story. It's to shrink it down. You don't have to take the vast 20 years of it. Pick one episode of it that you think will work and then see if you can flesh that out and make it into something. That's what finally cracked the code of this for me.
And telling it through Bobo's eyes, right? Telling it through her eyes, because that, I think, it's like a cartoon, right? If you do it a cartoon, you can get so much political stuff out and people are forgiving. If it's through a child's eyes.
That was the thought. I thought, how do I tell a racist story? I wanted to play the part of the mother, but if we're showing this from this awful colonialist woman's eyes and she's a racist, you're going to repel the audience. But if you put an innocent child, as there are all over the world right now, in every war zone, in every political problem country, there are children sitting there watching and learning from the adults around them. And that was the beginning point. I thought, let me tell it from the child's point of view. I'd seen it done. Taika Waititi did it fantastically in Jojo Rabbit. And that made me go, God, that's a great way. Like that kid could be anti-Semitic and Hitler's his best friend, but it was getting a message across. And so this child coming out of her mouth is what she's learned. And even that in and of itself tells you something about the time and about the racism of the time. It was a long, slow process. I type looking at the screen and not at the screen, at the keyboard. That's how slow I go. And then I have to go back and look and correct it. So it's not, oh, the whiz of me. I'd never written anything before. So finally I knew the script. And that again was all the scripts I'd read and all the films I'd watched probably, which we can all do because it's constant education. And all the books I'd read, I finally knew that the script was where it needed to be. And that's when it was like, oh, let me find a director. And I could not I met a few people. I thought this person should be South African, should get it. And no one was quite right. And my husband actually said, you should direct it. You've been on many sets. You've worked with great directors. You know enough about the camera. And the big leap was, oh my gosh, okay, I'll do it. And we cobbled together the tiniest amount of money. I put in some of my own money. We begged, borrowed, stole, which is what people can do. I, at one point, was really inspired by Sean Baker and the fact that he'd shot on iPhone. And had I shot on an iPhone, it wasn't going to look like Sean Baker's looked because I don't have any knowledge about editing or anything. That was the stuff I had to learn as I went along. But I thought at the very least, if I had to, I could raise enough to do the super low budget version of this on my parents' farm because it was all in one location. And then we got enough together to go over and make the film. And basically that was it, with an incredibly steep learning curve. Every single day I thought I was having a nervous breakdown because I'd never done it before. I'd never problem solved it. My lead was a 7-year-old child. But
all the elements that could possibly derail a first project.
Challenge. Yes,
more challenge.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
Can I pick in first from your writing process? Because I think every actor listening to this, everybody has a story to tell. But sitting down with that blank page, although you have a book to really reference, what was part of your writing process? Are you somebody that sits down and you're like, okay, here's my outline. I'm going to do 2 hours today. Or are you the type of person that sits down and the characters just come to life? What is your process to produce the script?
Again, remember the material that
so rich.
Her writing, it was all there, so vivid. Even dialogue, she had written dialogue in there. So when I saw her dialogue in there, I went, oh my gosh, that's the voice of the character. So then when I needed to replicate it, to build out scenes, I could reference back to the way that Alexandra Fuller wrote, the way she spoke as a child. She has a great sense of humor about herself as a tough, racist little kid. And it's not funny, but she could make it funny, right? The way she thought, the outrageous things that she would say, which are so shocking, but then a character emerged. It was so clear what that character could be. So back to the source material. And again, I'd say to anybody else watching, I'm not very disciplined. I'm not the 2 hours a day person. I would leave it alone and then go back to it. Lots of time, there'd be weeks that would go by, then I wouldn't work, then I'd feel guilty and I'd have that crappy feeling inside where I'd be like, shit, I really need to do something to make today meaningful. And I'd go back and do a couple of hours work, which would start it up again. But if you don't have, say you don't have the access to the source material, even think of the things that have inspired you. So imagine if you have a story to tell and you want to tell the story about your 15-year-old self, go back in time in films and ask yourself, which are the 5 films that have been most compelling to you? Ask yourself, what is it about the characters in those films or the stories there that really hooked me? See if there's anything, not to plagiarize it, but to see what it was about that made it compelling and what could apply to your 15-year-old self that you're going to tell a story about. What are the different subplots? And then what's the main cataclysmic event that changes everything in the middle of it? Read a little bit about the mythology and the hero's journey. That stuff also gives you a great
framework.
Yes, bone structure. And then you can fill it in. And I'd say we've all got, if we all think back to when we were younger, you've got stories from when you were about 5, say from about 7 till about 25. We've all got stories. The terrible relationship, the most embarrassing encounter, the one person that was your nemesis at school, the things that you might want to pop into a story come from your own story. So what I would do is take Alexandra's thing, but I remember my grandmother had, and it's a scene in the film, my grandmother had an ashtray that was this bronze ashtray with a woman's skirts and a woman in the front. But when you turn it over, it's her bare butt. And as a 8-year-old, when we moved to South Africa, I was transfixed by the naughtiness of that bare butt. And I knew there was something. I was like, oh my God, I kept turning it over and looking at that bare butt. So that I used, my grandmother's long gone, but my brother inherited that ashtray. I used it in the film, and I wrote a scene where little Bobo is sitting there talking whatever, and she looks at it. And the parents were the mother character is so wonderful. As much as she's awful, she also has a wonderful sense of humor, and they have dirty magazines pinned up in the bathroom. And in this child's mind, she's looking at the bare butt, and she says, why can't we read naughty magazines? Because she knows looking at a bare ass is sexual. So that's what I mean about going back to, I have Bobo now, I have Alexandra Fuller's Bobo, but then I have this recollection of that ashtray and how it excited my imagination as an 8-year-old. So I think people must jot down those things in their own lives that were these bright sparks that ping, and you can always slot them into a film somewhere.
That's beautiful, I think, recommendation for people. They always say, write what you know. Right.
What you know, write what you know. And your angst when you had a crush and something terrible happened, write it down. Think of where was I? What were the feelings? What did the person do? What are those unspoken things? There's somebody looking across a room, but you can write down the experience and you can slot it in somewhere one day.
And exactly, you're writing your vision from before. So now I want to talk about your vision. I love that you couldn't find the person. And just for the audience catch up, I'm just going to name a few of the directors that you've worked with, but Steven Spielberg, M. Night Shyamalan, Mark Webb, David Fincher, Chris Columbus, the list goes on. Robert, what was your visual medium that you pulled in? I've only seen the trailer, but Embeth, it is so powerful, the way you decided to tell this story. So what was your first step into directing for the visual component?
Like anybody, I was on one Spielberg set, which was the gift of a lifetime.
Biggest.
Yeah, and truly a gift of a lifetime, right? To watch him so excited and working with his cinematographer and visual, and he knows everything there is to know about a lens. I came to it not knowing that. I did know that there was and this is the part that I worked on in the script, that there was a sense, Stephen always has this childlike wonder. In Empire of the Sun, which is one of my favorite Spielberg films, the Christian Bale character is a jerk of a kid. He treats his nanny badly, he's imperious, he's been spoiled. And you see him slowly come undone as the film plays out. Spielberg's handling of children and of a child's worldview was huge. And I kept thinking about, but most of all, what does a child see? And I was on enough sets to know, okay, we're going to go in a close-up now. We're going to go in a 150 millimeter lens. That's the close-up. My vanity self as an actress was always, oh, shoot, that's the close-up. So now I'm going to modulate my performance and not be really big because it's not the wide, it's the close-up. But I worked with a cinematographer who was brilliant. And I said, this is got to be this dusty, dirty, oily, breaking apart society. And in it, this child, but we have to see things the way a child sees things. So that there's an argument that happens. She's sitting under the table playing. You know, when you make a fort when you're little and you'd bring all your crap in from your bedroom and throw blankets over. I did that. I put her under the table because also the little girl is all over the place and I needed to contain her in one spot. And then I have the parents having this terrible, violent fight and she's seeing feet and things fall. So again, what does the child see? So it's going into your imagination. All of us, all actors, and this is what actors bring that maybe other technicians don't bring, is that we have the ability to remember and do the sense memory on what is it like when you're sitting down there and someone's fighting and throwing crap around a room. And then I would turn the camera around and shoot her. So I stumbled along, but I had great luck with a very good and patient cinematographer, a very good and patient editor who taught me the technical stuff that I needed to put the vision, make the vision come to life. I didn't know how to do that. They helped me do that, but I stuck to the story. I go back to just your script has got to be ready before that camera starts rolling, because once you get in there, it's literally chaos, accidents, mayhem, and you get what you can get. But if your script is strong, you'll have something to edit at the end of the day.
And it's money, right? So if your script isn't ready, the amount of time that you're spending trying to fix the script versus shooting something, your actors are trying to figure it out. I can't wait. I would love to actually read the script of it before.
I'll send it to you. Sure, I'll send it to you.
I think it would be riveting to see. I always love seeing what's on the page, what makes the final cut. So having such a compelling script, having it also be a New York Times bestseller. When you talk about casting from the perspective now as a director, you've done 30 plus years of being hired constantly for your work, getting itself, you auditioning yourself. How did you choose? What did you see that stood out the most for you in people's auditions, particularly even the child, but even all the other characters that you're having to hire? What was compelling auditions that you were seeing?
Well, I cannot tell you, and every actor hearing this would say, oh, I get it, how relieved I was not to be auditioning. Oh my God. I never want to audition ever again. I am done. I am exhausted. I'm tired of putting my soul out there. I'm so tired of trying so hard. And as much as you can read off my resume, there are many more that I didn't get. So it's just soul destroying. What I did find, first of all, and I learned this with myself, that one audition, the ones that I never got were when I was not off book. You have got to be off book. Why I even thought I could waft around with a piece of paper in my hand.
Right.
Get the job. I don't know who I thought I was. So lazy the days that I ever did that. But the days that I didn't, and I was off book and sharp, those were the jobs that I got. So the actors that came in, I loved being surprised. I would say, if there's a weird thought that comes into your head and you've got a different take on things, not the obvious thing on the page, try it. Do 1 or 2 takes like that. So the one guy that I really wanted to play, he's actually a terrible character in it, Anton is his name in the movie, did some really interesting and surprising things, unlike everyone else played I'm going to play the awful racist guy and do the obvious. This guy had something else that was semi-sexy, sexily menacing about him. And it gave depth and it gave more dimension to the character, right? So don't pick one thing and play one thing. I remember Robert Altman told me this. He said, if you can be sitting in a scene and thinking about, he was funny because Bob could be naughty. And he said, if you're sitting in a scene and someone's talking about something, think about the fact that you've got a wedgie and you really just want to reach in and get that underwear out that's stuck in your bum. And I laugh about it, but I do know that the takes where that was happening and I put my hand down and almost move in my seat, it makes something interesting. Then you're looking at something different, not just the usual thing, because we're all trying to be so good and learn our lines and give them what we think they want. But I'd say throw in something surprising. If I watch my kids now, teens and young 20-year-olds, and their behavioral things. My son will rub his face in a weird way, and you don't have to go nuts, but you will get their attention by being slightly different, just being more naturalistic in your behavior or doing something surprising. That was all the adults. For the children, I would say the opposite. I would say I saw child actors and the casting director sent them in. And God bless these kids, they'd been in things probably before, but they were all acting. They were all acting too much. And my brief was, I want a child who's never acted before, because this has to be the most wild, feral, crazy little girl running barefoot, shooting tin cans, and no self-consciousness. And children especially, there are few of them that don't have self-consciousness when we don't. I have self-consciousness sometimes when I say lines, and I have to really work not to sound self-conscious, right? But I wanted the purity of a kid who had never been on a set, didn't even know what the heck was going on. And I knew, but she also needed to have this gorgeous face. And this child, after all of that, we finally put out a Facebook post, and someone saw a post on Facebook and said, I know a kid like that. And the mother reached out, and the minute I saw her, I went, who's that? Because her face was just beautiful. And then when I said, go and record her, just record a conversation with her. I want to hear how she talks. And she was telling stories about her brother had burnt her finger, and she was so sad about it, but I couldn't take my eyes off her. And then I flew over to South Africa and went to meet with her. And I knew right away. She was prepared a bit. And then because there was a scene that her mom had prepared with her. And then I said, let's throw that away. Let's just talk. What if you were really sad about something? Let's just pretend. And I improvised with her. And I was like, this is the kid. When she was not looking at the things and hadn't learned something off by heart, she was free as a bird. And it was absolutely who Bobo needed to be.
Your opening scene in the trailer is exactly what you said, capturing her exactly like that. That little face draws you in so much. And it's just, I cannot wait to see this. Well done. Kudos.
The TV and film landscape, it's constantly changing, but traditional actor training has largely remained the same.
It's focused on a theater model whose main goal is to help you stretch the expression of your instrument. That's why you can have years of training,
From scene study classes to audition classes,
to even an MFA, and still not be able to book a 2-line co-star.
That's why we created the Bridge for Actors.
A collection of tech, craft, and business online courses to teach you the skills that you need to go from a student of acting
to a working actor.
Thank you.
Okay, I want to get into your acting now. So you've got decades of different techniques, different tools. You don't have to audition for yourself in this, but you might have given yourself one of the more challenging roles as an actress. There's so much, like you said, the reason why you found this material or wanted to option this material first and foremost was because of the role you wanted to play. How did you prepare?
Yeah.
Beth, even if you want to go back to an audition story or how you've prepared for auditions in the past, some of the projects you've been a part of, some of the roles that you've gotten to play, I've always wanted to know how you approach your tools other than reading the script, or if you want.
Listen, I knew very well. Here's what happened. By the way, by the time I'd written and was going to direct it, I didn't even want to act in it anymore because I thought, how am I going to do all of this? So by then the acting thing I was like, how many scenes of her can I cut? What's the least amount of scenes I can give the mother? Because I knew what that was going to be like to be directing a kid who I only had for 3 hours a day. For labor laws, and then everything, we'd shoot her, then we'd send her home, then we'd shoot everybody else's reverses. So for myself, I think, and I would say if I was starting with a script again, a dense script and a dense part, oh my gosh, who was it that said you read the script 250 times? Who was it? Was it Tony Hopkins? Someone said it. And honestly, I felt like I'd read it 250 times because I'd written it and rewritten it. So I knew the scenes backwards. And then weirdly, other than just knowing the lines, I didn't set in my head, what am I going to do on the day? I knew what I wanted the scene to do from the outside as a director, but on the day when I went in, I was actually flying by the seat of my pants. At least I knew the story enough and my character well enough. So I had that on board in my cells, in the sediment, deep, deep in. So on the day, oh my God, we've got 10 minutes to shoot mine. Okay, turn the camera around, point it at me. Let's go on a medium shot. Okay, now I'm going to do it. How was that? Let me do one more. I didn't have time to watch playback. And basically, I put that performance together. I stitched it together in the editing because I didn't have a chance to direct myself. I'd read the script so many times. That's probably why I could do it.
Yes.
Because I knew...
You're so inside of it.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes. And I think also sometimes
preparation.
It's the distraction too. You had an overwhelmingly amount of preparation, knowing it inside and out, and then you didn't have time to fuss about it. It's like, you've worked with Fincher before. You've done the 40, 50 takes. When you only have 2 or 3, that instinct.
And I'm a funny actor. I always think like my first few are my best anyway. I feel like it's diminishing returns for me. I don't think you necessarily, by take 50, you're not getting the best one. But there was no time to perfect that. I think if anything, my performance is the one thing that is not my favorite thing, because it's fine, it's serviceable, but I didn't craft that because I couldn't really direct myself. But the preparation helped. And I think the bag bricks is somehow, for the actor, we have to be so prepared and know the material so well, and yet so free and relaxed. And for me, it was, I've got 2 takes. We've got time for 2. So I'm just going to fling it out there and see, was it in focus? It was in focus. Okay, then let's move on, because there's no time to labor over this.
No, not at all. And thank God. And I think that's why I always say when I get to set, especially for film, my favorite person to get to know, other than the DP, is the editor. It's the editor. The editor is going to make or break my,
Totally.
can really make something out of nothing and take too much, maybe. And it really comes
Yes.
down to how they're seeing the story and that communication. Look, directing something, writing something, it's been probably the last year of your life, like 2 years of your life.
2 years,
More.
Yeah.
Have you stepped back onto set as an actor since
No.
doing this?
No.
Are you excited to go back to just that one responsibility? And what did you learn from this lesson or this beautiful project that you would want to implement the next time when your sole responsibility is just acting?
The luxury of just acting would be amazing. It just would be, I don't even know. I feel like for real, for sure, being as prepared as possible, but which as you get older, I turn 60 in a couple of months, and it's much harder to learn lines as you get older. It doesn't, if you're not doing it regularly, it really does take longer. So know the lines inside and out, every which way. And then maybe I'd be a bit more playful. Maybe I'd be a bit lighter, because there is something that happens. There was something that would happen when I was acting with this child. The child taught me something. More than anything, watching her is what I learned from, because she was so free. And I had to keep her busy. So there's a scene where I just knew we've got to find places to put her and give her things to do, or she's going to be all over the place. And so the one scene was I put her under the table. Another one, it was blazing hot. It was an African summer, like 95 degrees every single day. So I filled up a tub, an old tin tub, and put her in it, in little underpants and a vest, and gave her stuff to play with. It's one of my favorite scenes. And when I edited it, I didn't even know what to keep, because everything was so great. She'd say the lines and she'd talk to the person but she'd play with her dolls and spill water and throw things around, and not in an uncontrolled way, but her freedom. So props are really great. Any kind of a prop, something that doesn't interfere with what the camera is going to do, or with what the edit is, or with what the continuity person might be concerned about. But it just, for the 7-year-old, her freedom came when she wasn't forced to say a line to someone else. One time I gave her a bowl of ice and said, just talk, pop the ice in your mouth, suck on the ice because it was hot, spit the ice out, see how far you can split a block of ice. All those things she did between sentences. And so then it became this naturalistic performance. I would give her the lines because she was better when she didn't learn the lines. So I'm off camera saying, say this, say that, say this to her, to the other person. And so feed her the lines, now spit the ice, now play with the dog. Because we used her dog on the set as well. There's a lot of dogs in the film, but we used her dog. And then I had a second camera running all the time, picking up footage of her in her natural habitat, playing with her dog, swinging her legs, picking her toenails, and I used those things in the film. So again, the natural, if I were to go back on a set, I would say, bring something that, I saw Gillian Anderson do this with she used a silk blouse. She was always in silk in that scary show that Jamie Dornan was in about the crime, about the serial killer. And she was always touching the silk and readjusting the silk, and it gave her something as a character. So if there's something that, like this little girl, that you can take and use, that you can put your energy into, that relaxes you, I would say do it, as long as it's not distracting.
I think that's the thing. Even when I'm working with actors, I call it primary, secondary focus. You and I are talking right now, but look at how much, like, you've got the cat over here. We've got things going on. And I think I watched Kate Winslet do this in Mildred Pierce, or not Mildred Pierce, Mayor of
Love
Easttown,
that. Yes.
where she's clipping her grandson's fingernails while doing the scene. It just brings everything to life. And we're not so on. We're not so.
That's the thing. So that is what I could do, because for years I would hate the stiff sitting there. And honestly, I think the parts where I was good or good better than others were when I was freer. I think the parts, the more buttoned up I was, the more a director would make me buttoned up, the worse I would get. And I'm embarrassed of some of those performances. If I look at them now, I cringe because I don't feel proud of that work. The work where I'm most myself or freest or being playful, if I think of Mansfield Park, I did it with a friend of mine, Alessandro Nivola, who played my husband in Judebug. And
Yes.
so Alessandro and I know each other well, and we have a way of talking to one another. And I could be silly and playful and quite a lot like myself in both of those characters. And so then those are free, as opposed to others that'll remain unmentioned, where I just am sitting there very still and trying to hit a mark, and I'm just as stiff as a board. And there's nothing interesting about what I'm doing. It is that, and the behavioral stuff is the stuff I really wanted to capture in the film, because if you're watching an interesting kid, it's all about their behavior.
Completely. Do you want to direct again after doing this?
I do. And again, only something that I love, though, because the directing was hard. And those 6 weeks of prep this is interesting. This is getting harder. Oh my goodness, these are long days. But the 6 weeks of shooting as a producer, writer, actor, director, I almost think I was going to have a nervous breakdown. By the end, I think I had PTSD just from trying to hold it together. So I was so spent by the end of every day. But I loved the creative process. But there's other stuff that comes in. I learned how a composer works. And I had this incredible composer. I learned from the editor how you weave in what they call stems, which I didn't know anything about, which is like the horns come in and then the strings come in and then we'll repeat it and then you lay it down, you pull those tracks out later. So it was this fascinating world that opened up to me. So I would love to do that again, I wouldn't want to be in it at the same time as directing again. And I would like to work possibly with adults.
It's a little less challenges, just a few.
Yeah, as much as I adore the kid, I just would like to work with some adult actors again.
The limitation of time is pretty tough. And that just, I think, puts so much stress on anybody's project. You only have so much, literally, it's time and money. But yeah. I cannot wait to see this. I would love to ask some business questions as somebody who's been doing this for over 20 years as an actress myself and having a child, working through it. What's some business acumen that you picked up along the way that you think you would have either done differently or you would implore for other women to do as they're building their careers?
I would say, and it's probably my mistake, I'm quite a hermit. I don't go out enough. I think that when you have the opportunity to go out and to meet people in the business, you need to do it. So on every level, if there are actors, build a community, build a world around you, because in the times that I did do it were something always came to fruition from there, right? There's a world of creative people. Do you live in Los Angeles? I
do. That was going to literally be my next question.
Yeah. So LA, it's spread out more now, but I think it's really important for any artist, no matter what type of artist you are, to have a community of other artists around you. So I would say when someone says, oh, there's a drinks party or a opening of a thing or a screening, go, because that's your opportunity to see things and to learn things. I would say for me, I guess that, listen, I have said no to things and auditions because sometimes I didn't feel like doing it. I didn't feel like putting in the work. I didn't want to embarrass myself. I didn't want to, if I didn't have enough time. That's a big one for me because my agents would say, remember when you didn't do blah, 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 so don't preach that you do it, is just drink a strong cup of coffee and work on it and take the opportunities when you can, because we see how many less opportunities there are right now. So I would say don't turn your nose up at something, rather go for it. You have to measure how your soul is doing at the same time and occasionally give yourself a break. And if you're just like, you know what, I've killed myself for the last 4 things I went in on, I didn't get them, I'm actually going to sit this one out. Do you know what? I'm actually going to take the day to go and sit in the Huntington Gardens or go to the beach or swim or do something because my soul feels like it's dying from this. But otherwise, my other advice would be do as many as you can, put yourself out there as much as you can, find that one thing that's electrifying that you can put on tape that a casting director is going to spot and go, that's different, that's interesting, I wasn't expecting that.
I love that. I think that's really, especially with the self-tapes being our calling cards now for getting work, that you have to, they're seeing hundreds of actors approach the transition the same way. Like, what's your different way in? So just in the middle of them running to the door, they're actually going to come back and watch your audition. I have a lot of single parents that listen to this. I just actually had a conversation last week with a single dad who has twins, and I have to stay in LA. I'm so glad that you mentioned that at one point in your career, you weren't willing to go 6 months and be somewhere else. What was that conversation like with your agents and managers? And I know everything's retrospect now, but do you feel like that brought you more great opportunities for where you needed to be? Or what's your advice around that too? Because it's not just for women, it's anybody in this career now being pulled in different directions while you have this responsibility of being also a parent.
I would say, listen, different kids at different times in their lives, until they're in those really important years of school, I would say you have to go where the job is, and then the kids have to come with you. You will put them in a local public school. I know that sounds really disruptive, but we have to work. As adults, if we're the breadwinners, that's what we have to do. And if you don't have a partner, or if you have a partner, if there's another parent that can stay with them, but the luxury of saying no, I had the luxury that my husband was paying the mortgage. I didn't have to worry about it. I could be a stay-at-home mom. Most people don't have that luxury. And if you don't, to me, you have to go with getting out of your comfort zone. And I think I lost a lot of opportunities by saying no. I think I'm happy for the fact that I'm as close to my children and that they are good kids, that I was here with them. But I would say to somebody who's really trying to make a career happen, if the work is somewhere else, you need to go where the work is. And if your kids are little enough, you can take them with you. And if they aren't, you're going to go back and forth. I don't know who the other parent is, but it's a really tough, that would be very tough. But I would say you got to do it.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It's really interesting.
Very
but also,
hard.
I love seeing your career also. I know it's the time as well where films were like such a big thing. When I moved to LA, the only thing I wanted to do was film. And now we see the rise of great television. For you to have these incredible films that you were a part of in the 90s and early 2000s, and then to decide to stay put in LA, for us to get to see you on In Treatment, so us to get to see you in a television format and to get to see characters go on, what a joy. We got to force you into being a part of also great television.
Yeah, that's right. That's right when the cable stuff started, and it was so good, though. It was so good. I got lucky. And there is good stuff. You talk about Mayor of Easttown, those sorts of limited series and series like Succession or Game of Thrones, or there's a magnificent, in some ways, a lot of the TV is more compelling to me than a lot of the films are right now. So there was a huge division back in my day, especially from network TV to films. You didn't cross over. But the cable game, what's now streaming, changed everything. And that at least fed me something. And I kept my toe in the acting waters during those years because things did shoot here. Yeah, everything's changed so much in the last 20 years. It's as if I woke up on Mars and I'm in a different country. That's how different it is.
It is so wildly different. But I feel like it's that transition that we had to DVDs. It was the transition that we had to streaming. Now we're in a different transition and hopefully some television and some films will come back to the States, that they will start making more. Okay, this is my last question. I wanted to know, especially as a filmmaker, how does Sony Classics come in and scoop this up? Was it you doing the festival route that allowed buyers to come in? Because that's a whole other avenue that we learn.
Yeah. And that's how naive I was. I did not even know I didn't know what was going to happen with this thing. I knew I wanted it to make it. I knew I wanted to make it. I thought, oh, I'll find out what I do with it after I've made it. Then I realized during the edit, oh, we need to get it done. I had a very good producer, and that's important, who said, listen, you've got to finish the edit by this time, because we want to get it in before Toronto closes and Telluride closes. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that. So we put it in, and then I got the call, oh, can you come to Telluride? Can you come to Toronto? Which then it was just like, I can't believe this. I didn't think this was going to get invited to a film festival. And then what happened is it got seen in Telluride. Telluride was a major, if anything was a huge gift in this whole thing, it was Julie Hunsinger from Telluride inviting me to go. And Telluride is a filmmakers, a directors festival. It's really where new people, and the idea that I was there every second was a pinch me moment. And then people start talking about the film. And I think the Sony Picture Classics chaps saw it at Telluride and then saw it again at Toronto. And between Toronto and when we went to Zurich, they came in and said, we'd like to distribute the film, which allowed us to know that the film then, and listen, it's a teeny tiny little film. So it's going up in the summer, 2 screens in LA, 2 screens in New York, and then a few screens and expand out. But the reason that the fact that they could have seen it at all at a film festival and then say, we will distribute it, is a miracle. And eyes upon it will be a miracle too, because it's a tiny, teeny tiny little film. But to me, I keep just telling myself the miracles happened. The miracle was the fact that it got made and that anybody's seen it at all. So anything else is like the cherry on top.
I feel like these are the little miracle films that we need to see and hear from right now. I'm tired of the remakes. I'm tired of the Marvel. I understand studios want to return on their investment, but dear God, it's these little films that, that spark a conversation, that allow us to be entertained, that actually change the way we think. Junebug changed the way I thought, right? That tiny little film that maybe you guys were just so delighted to go. Amy even said that was going to be her last film. She was done. She's like, I can't get hired. I can't get hired to do anything. I'm going to go do this tiny little film and then we're going to be done with it. So I'm so grateful that your first project, that it's the heart and soul of your passion, even your experience of growing up, not close to there, but in the same, for you to be able to infuse what you know into this story. I'm so grateful that you came.
Thank you for saying that, because you're also saying what sort of every actor or creator has to do, which is hold on to the thing in your heart, because I think that's what Phil and Angus did on Junebug. It was that. And those are the ones that I feel like finally get little feet, grow little feet, and can take tiny little steps. They find their way if there's something of our hearts and our honesty that's behind it.
Yes. Yeah. That passion and that you are inspired to do this. We're inspired then watching. I can't wait to watch it. Do you know the dates of when it's going to be in LA and New York? It's July, right? It's July 11th.
Yes.
Is that right?
July 11th, New York and LA, and then it starts expanding out over other cities through the summer. And then eventually, I think by the end of the year, it will be on Netflix.
Fantastic. I'm so excited. Thank you so much. Are you on Instagram? Are you on anything that people can follow?
I am. I'm not very good at it. Oh, I'm not good at it at all, but I am under my name, Embeth Davidtz, on Instagram. And I'm going to start posting more and more now. I have to get better.
As the film's coming. Yeah. Yes. Please keep us noted on what's going on. Thank you so much for letting me.
Thank you. You're so great at this. I love that you're doing this because you're very good at it.
Oh, thank you. It's a joy to get to talk to people. I look at this as like a mentorship thing. And before I was really working as an actor, I really wanted to know how you do it. And now producing and writing and developing, it's such a joy to talk to somebody who's stepped into it and how It takes 10 years, it takes 12 years. It's nice for, I think, creatives to hear not the overnight success, but the work that it takes so that people don't stop. I don't want anybody that listens to this podcast to stop their creative journey because it didn't happen just like this. And it's usually from our failures, like you said earlier, that we learn the most. And there's so many great storytellers out there.
And I heard something that incredible teacher, philosopher, psychiatrist, Phil Stutz, he said, it's like a string of pearls. You put one pearl on, just one pearl a day. Think of the string. Do one thing. Go write one paragraph, one piece of dialogue. Go and write down one thing, just one thing a day. Eventually, it becomes a string of pearls. And I feel like the 8 years that it took me to do this, I did one pearl a day. Some days I skipped, but one thing a day.
What a beautiful necklace that we all get to enjoy and see. And just like truly the rest of your career up to this point. Like I can't wait to see you transition and what other stories you might be a part of being the visionary for. So kudos to like an incredible career. Thank you. Thank you. This is really so exciting to get to talk to you because some of these films, they really did. I've referenced Fallen in a lot of my pitches. Like the stories that I'm creating now literally are some of you, Embeth, like some of your stories. So thank you.
I love that.
Thank you.
It makes me happy. Thanks, honey.